So I'm the mayor of Redondo Beach, California. It's a city of about 70,000 people. I first got involved in local politics because I wanted to make sure there was a park where an old power plant is right now that's going to retire. Hasn't happened yet. It's going to take longer, but it will happen. So not long after I got elected mayor, I was invited to something called the North American Mayors Conference by the new president of Mexico. I didn't know much about what this was, but when the president invites you to something, you go. So I decided I want to go a day early because I surf and the water's warm and why not? So I'm flying down by myself. It's a beautiful flight, looking over the Sea of Cortez. I get a window seat. I doze off on the plane like we all do for what I thought was about 5 minutes. And I opened my eyes, and the nice couple from Sonoma were gone, and there was now a lady sitting next to me with an oxygen tank and a mask. And I looked at her and said, "So who are you? What are you doing here? And what's with the mask and the tank?" And she just looked at me, sizing me up, and very calmly said, "Well, I'm so-and-so. I'm a nurse practitioner, and you had a seizure. So I came to be with you." And I'm like, "Seizure? I don't know what you're talking about." And she said, "This ever happened to you before?" "I still don't know what you're talking about." But at that time, I felt my tongue and had bit my tongue, and I could taste the blood. And I was dazed, and so I started coming to terms. Something's happened here. So I asked her, how long was I out? And she said, about 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Well, 15 minutes later, we landed in Mexico. I'm by myself. Here comes the wheelchair. For me. So they whisk me out, cab, off to the clinica, meet with the doctors, and they keep me overnight. And they're wonderful to me. A nurse dotes over me all night. I spend most of the night on my computer Googling seizures, and I diagnosed myself with late onset epilepsy at 61 years old. Let me just say right here, right now, folks, do not diagnose yourself reading the internet. Dr. Google is not your friend. A real doctor came in the next morning, and he said, "Well, Mr. Brand, I don't know what happened to you. You can go to your conference. Don't go in the water." He said, "If you had been in the water, you'd be dead right now with this sweeping international motion. When you get home, go see your doctor." So they released me, and I went to the conference. And then I flew home. I went to see my general practitioner, and he was very concerned because just a few months earlier I had had a physical. He declared me in exceptional health, and now I'm having a seizure. And so he orders a brain MRI. And I go to the brain MRI the next morning, and I spend the day driving around LA and going to Santa Monica and doing what mayors do. I get home about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and my doctor calls me. And he says, "Bill, this is very serious. They found a mass in your head, and you have to go to the hospital right now. And don't drive, and take your things." I had forgotten about everything. I had forgotten about the seizure. I had even forgotten about the MRI that morning. So it was stunning. And my wife was in China. I hadn't told her anything. I mean, what would be the point? "Hey, honey, I had a seizure. What is she going to do?" But it was real. It was very real now. And my doctor said, "Bill, she needs to come home." So I tried calling her, nothing. Off to the hospital. I walk into the emergency room. They call my name right away. William Brand. Nobody calls me William Brand. So this is all very surreal. I walk into the exam room, and they've got my MRI up on a screen. There's 3 doctors there looking at my MRI. And I walk in and say, "Yeah, Mr. Brand, yes. We're very sorry, but that's got to come out." And I'm looking at my brain MRI, and I said, "Are you guys talking about brain surgery right now?" And he says, "Well, not right now. Maybe tonight, probably tomorrow morning." Okay, Right then the phone rings. My phone's in my lap, it rings. It's my wife calling from China, who knows nothing. I don't feel like I know anything. And I hand the phone to the doctor. I can't even talk. So he takes the phone, lays it all out for her, hangs up, hands the phone back to me and says she's on her way home. And I'm on my way up to a hospital room, and they run a ton of tests. Doctors come into my room that night. Says, well, Mr. Brand, we have good news and bad news. Good news is there isn't going to be any brain surgery. Bad news is you have lung cancer that has spread to your brain, which caused the seizure. You also have it in your back. By the way, you have a fracture in L1. Does your back hurt? No, I feel fine, thank you. Whew. So right then my phone rings. And it's a reporter. It's a local reporter calling me about something related to the city. He knows nothing. But I explained to him where I am and what's happened, and I've just been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And he says, well, geez, can I report this? And I go, sure, why not? I'm the mayor. Everybody needs to know. So next morning, front page of the local paper, Mayor Brand diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. I've been in local politics for 20 years. I'd already been mayor for 3 years, councilman 8 years. This is only the second time I've ever been on the front page of the paper. And it was for all to see. So, as crazy as that story sounds, and it is, it's really not that unusual. In fact, about 200,000 people will be diagnosed with cancer this year in America. About 130,000 are going to die of lung cancer this year in America. And it's always very stunning in that fashion. So, and we all know somebody who's got cancer or some other illness. And it really it reminds me of the Jim Morrison quote. I mean, we're all going to get something, right? We're all going to get something. And as Jim Morrison said, nobody gets out of this alive. So that was one of my lessons. So sitting in my hospital bed, I thought about it a lot. It was on the front page of the paper, and I had to decide, how am I going to share this with the public? And I felt like, why not? Everybody needs to know everything. I'm the mayor. I really just saw no reason not to. So how could I communicate all this? So I took to Facebook, and I was very transparent. I explained my diagnoses. I explained the treatments I was going through. I showed my scans, I showed the PET scans, I showed the brain MRIs, X-rays. I think I taught a lot of people in the community how to read brain scans and PET scans. And it was very, very forthcoming. About a year into my treatments, I had a big decision to make. Was I going to retire from my job, which I'd been on leave from, and was I going to run for re-election for mayor? Because my 4-year term was coming up, and it's time to either run for re-election or not, and it was time to whether retire from my job or not. So retiring from my job was easy. I'd been there 41 years. That was enough. Whether to run for re-election was much more difficult. But really, through the transparency of it all and the connections I was feeling from the community, I mean, I had been getting cards and letters and emails. Even out walking on the street, people would approach me and ask me how I was doing. They were genuinely concerned. But they knew a lot, actually. And I could feel kind of the trust building that, okay, well, we know what's going on with the mayor. So, in the final analysis, really after talking to my doctor who gave me the go-ahead, he said, your otherwise good health, Bill, will see you probably through this as a chronic condition that you can deal with. So if you want to be mayor, go right ahead. So after a lot of time, I took kind of a time out. All this gave me time out to really think about it. I decided, why not? It's what I've been doing for 20 years. It's what's been my passion. Sure, I kind of had a bucket list, but really at the top of my bucket list was just to keep doing what I had been doing and be thankful that I was able to do that. So I decided to run for mayor, stage 4 lung cancer and all. And as I got into it, you know, you got to crank up a big campaign to run for mayor, and I was lucky to have that time out. And what I realized too, you learn a lot of lessons from having cancer, is that, you know, my life was going 110 miles an hour. And when something like this hits you and you get completely off track of what your plans were, you really think about things more. And so that helped me come to the conclusion to run for mayor again and really feel it. It's kind of like, you know, timeouts are important. I remember about six months into my treatment, when I was having a really hard time. I was on chemo and radiation at the time. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep well. I was losing weight, and, you know, I really couldn't do much. And I found myself sitting in my kitchen by myself, just staring out the window, right? Doing nothing, which was unusual for me. And I started looking around the room, because we had been in a remodel for about, I don't know, how long to remodel? Like 9 months. And all I wanted was that remodel to be over, right? My wife was handling everything, and the dust and the workers coming through all the time, and the mess and the noise, I just wanted it to be over. I thought everything was fine anyway, and so it finally ended. And that was about a year before this. But now, here I was, sitting down with nothing to do, couldn't really do much, looking around. And as I looked around, finally, I noticed the beams, I noticed the staircase, I noticed the floors, the kitchen, and it was amazing. I had never even noticed it before. I was just so glad it was over. And I remember my wife coming down and me finally telling her how beautiful it was and thanking her so much. And it just made me realize how it took that time out to make space to be able to appreciate something so monumental that you know, it was just passing me by. One of the many lessons of cancer, that and the transparency that I was able to put out to the community and to my family and friends really gave me the strength. And when I say transparency, I mean no holds barred. I mean no scripting, you know, no sugarcoating, just the good, the bad, the ugly, the emotional struggles I had with my wife, even when it was all too much to bear. Really helped me understand how valuable it is to be forthright with not just yourself, but with your family, your friends, and your whole community. And as a result, I had the strength and the trust of a whole community. And I got reelected. So, that was very gratifying. So, what are the lessons in all this? And why am I telling you all this? It's really about transparency. Don't be afraid of having cancer. Don't be afraid of having some horrible disease. Everybody gets something, right? And it really will give you the strength to carry forward and move ahead with what you want for your life. However long that's going to be, because we're all not going to be here forever. In fact, none of us are. Anyway, thank you.